Hello, and welcome back to the Animal Communicator and Healer Summit. This is the place for aspiring and established animal communicators and healers to connect with animals, to connect with their abilities, and to connect with each other. I'm your host, Dr. Kara Gubbins, founder of the Animal Wisdom Circle and creator of How to Talk to Your Pet, the proven 4-step system that teaches anyone and everyone how to communicate with their pets or with any animal. And we have a special gift today in the form of Laila Del Monte, who is joining us to talk about animal consciousness and animal communication. This is going to be a really awesome conversation. Laila Del Monte is an author, a teacher, an animal communicator, and an animal healer. For over 20 years, she's been at the forefront of animal communication in Europe, raising global awareness of animal consciousness. Laila's influence spans across universities, radio, television, sanctuaries, veterinary centers, and so much more. She was the subject of the 2014 documentary film Dans la peau des animaux, which is In the Skin of the Animals, and spoke about animal consciousness at the 2019 TEDx Rouen, France. And you can find her online at lailadelmonte.com. Welcome, Laila.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
It
I'm happy
is
to be
such a
here.
delight to be here with you. And before we started recording, we were talking about how different it was 20 years ago and the struggles compared to new animal communicators starting now. The environment is so different.
Yes.
And, it really occurs to me that it takes a certain kind of dedication and determination to overcome all of that resistance around you. So, can we start with your story about how you became an animal communicator?
Okay. It's a long one. It's a long one. Well, I started off I used to live in LA. I was in LA. I'm back in LA. I started off, I used to do healing for people. And one day, this lady, she just asked me about her cat with a picture. I'm taking the professional part and then I'll talk about the childhood. And so I gave her, I just blurted out a whole bunch of things just like that. And that was the spark that started the whole experience professionally. But when it really started is I was raised in Spain. I was born in America, raised in Spain and France. And I was raised on an island, a small island in Balearic Islands called Formentera. And we lived in a farm. There was goats, there was donkeys, sheep, dogs, cats, chickens. Very small farm, very, very primitive. There was no running water. It was extremely primitive. And I could hear, I get the information mainly with hearing. I would hear sentences about the animals, how they were feeling, how they were doing. I just knew. And to me, it was absolutely, completely natural. I thought everyone had it, which everyone does have this ability. But when I started going to French school, I realized, it's not quite, I better keep things quiet. So I learned how to not speak about those things and hide it a bit. And until I became a professional in this matter. So that was the beginning. Do you want me to continue?
Yes,
Full
please.
long story. so um, it started off in America, and I gave my first workshop in Colorado. I remember with 40 horses. I had a lot of clients who would ask me for healing, for communication. But then one day I had an American a client, Barbara. Her name was Barbara, and she was living in France. And she contacted me for her cat, and she said, you should really come. You should come to France. And I was like, oh, yes, yes. I was so happy because I hadn't lived in Paris and I had left Paris. I hadn't lived there in years. So she invited me. So she said, look, I'm going to get you a lecture. And it wasn't Paris. It was in the east of France, Montbéliard. And I gave a lecture there. And I was so happy, to be back in France. Croissant, the whole French experience. And this incredible woman came to hear me. Her name is Catherine. She now lives in Costa Rica. She's French. She was the owner of an equestrian center. And she came to hear me. And right away she came to me and she said, Laila, I want you to give lectures at my equestrian center. And I'm going to present you to the Équipe Nationale de France, which is the French high-level competition for jumping. And so she changed my life. Catherine, she was, one of those divine people who come into your life. And I started with her. I started in her equestrian center. I started giving workshops. I met the whole group of the equestrian Équipe Nationale de France. I worked with Michel Robert, who was the top rider at the time. We had a miraculous healing for his horse. I mean, there's all these series of events. It's a very long story. But what happened is, at the beginning, I used to give lectures in her center, and people have no idea what I was talking about. They completely didn't believe me. The horse world is very, very closed. Still is, by the way, very closed. And I was working with horses, dogs, cats, all kinds of animals. I used to lecture for 10 people, 50 people, really small groups at the time. And I used to pray before, please help me, divine, please help me, because it was so difficult. People could get really aggressive in a lecture. They would attack me. They would say I was a charlatan, and they would say I was part of a sect. So I stopped wearing violet, no violet. I would stick to like pink or white, because people would attack just if I was wearing violet, and all of a sudden I was part of a sect. It was crazy. And because I was raised in France, and I was raised in French school, and I studied at the Sorbonne, so I knew how to access very Cartesian minds, because if not, they would have never worked ever. So I never spoke of anything mystical, esoteric, nothing. I was like completely out of the subject. And it took me years and years and years. A lot of struggling. I used to go with my backpack, take trains, be at people's homes, people scamming me, conning me along the way, stealing from me, everything. You can't even, I experienced the diversity of human nature. I was very naive. I would have never thought this could have existed. And I just held because of my passion and my belief, my deep belief that this is true. Animals have consciousness, they have thoughts, emotions, consciousness. At the time, I never spoke about consciousness. It was only about emotions and thoughts. I would stick to that, and I would never also say where my information came from. I would never talk about other dimensions, other beings, past life experiences, all that, nothing. My life, my near-death experiences, I never approached that. And then, to make a long story short, because very long, a lot of experiences, I wrote my first book, which is the only one translated in English, which is called Psychic Communication for Healing for Animals, Psychic Communication and Healing for Animals, something like that. And that's the only one in English. And I wrote the first book for my students originally, so I wrote it in French. And then came a big TV that I did. I think one has access to it in English, M3. It's on my website. I think one can see it in America. One can't see it in France anymore, but one can see it in America, subtitled. And then I did the movie Dans la peau des animaux, which is translated as Connecting with Animals, and one can see it in English. It's on, I forgot the name of the website. One can find it on YouTube, translated, and I can give the link with the password if not in English. So I dubbed it myself in English with a production company. So yeah, I did all these things, and then I became more and more known. And then I wrote 6 books, 2 sets of cards, and another set of cards coming up, 2 more books coming up soon. So yeah.
You've been busy.
I've been really busy. The books are all in French and Spanish. They started translation in Italian. They're going to be in Portuguese. But for now, in English, there's only one, first one. Hoping to get the other ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And what a great foundation, right? To start with all of that really solid work and to grow and expand with it. And it sounds like over the years, you really had a big role in opening people's minds to this work and to being open to the possibility that there was more to animals than the traditionally thought, the traditional beliefs about them.
Yes. And you know, Cara, I never thought about that. Like I was just so much driven by passion, and this is what I have to do. I had such a strong sense of this is what I have to do, this is what I have to do. And I would just go, and it was exhausting because there was also jet lag because I would travel back and forth, you know. Then eventually I started settling more in Spain. But I had such a strong sense of this is what I have to do. I never thought in any way that I was raising consciousness or doing any of this stuff until much later on when people started talking about me like, oh, you're the reference. I'm like, oh, great, okay, I'm the reference. I was like, no idea what are you talking about. I'm just doing what I'm doing. And they started like, kind of being very, this bit. But at the same time I still was getting a lot of the aggression and nasty people and people calling me, so it never affected me much. I was like, none of this stuff is real, it's all a lie anyhow. It doesn't mean anything. I just have to continue doing what I'm doing, and that's it. I think the day I came to the realization a little bit more is when I was invited to teach in university in La Complutense in Madrid, and that was the Equine University in Madrid. And that day, I mean, my level of happiness was so high, that finally something was happening. That I was teaching professors, and nothing happened after that. It just stayed there. I was hoping that it would open up more, and it just didn't. But the level of happiness was very high, and the professors were amazing, and they had amazing results. And I thought it can go so much further.
It can, and
No?
and I think things kind of happen in this kind of wonky, they grow, they contract, they grow a little more, they
Yeah.
contract. Like it's not always linear as we would
No.
kind of hope, like the direct one-to-one
No,
relationship.
and I did a lot. I really did a lot. I mean, I know I'm one of the founders in Europe. I mean, I recognize that. And I don't wish on anyone to go through what I went through to get to that, because it was really tough. And the only reason, as I said, was the drive, and because I was always accompanied by the spiritual world, and I had incredibly spiritual experiences. Because I think if not, I would have not had the strength. I really think so. And so others can carry the torch like after.
And it's interesting because you said you were raising consciousness in Europe, and you also are really fascinated by animal consciousness. So let's
Yes.
talk about consciousness and what that means. How would you define animal consciousness?
Yes. Yes. So when people first asked me to define consciousness, I was like, well, it's obvious. I mean, to me, it was so obvious. I had no idea how to define it, um, because to me, it was obvious that animals have consciousness, plants have consciousness, stones have consciousness. Everything is conscious. It was obvious. Also based on my experiences with the other worlds and the afterlife. So for me, it was obvious. But then I realized that it wasn't at all obvious especially for Cartesian culture. So I had to figure out a way of defining it. And I found that basically the real definition of consciousness, as far as scientists give that definition, is consciousness means when you're conscious of your environment, you're conscious of others around you, you're conscious of your own emotions and of yourself and of your actions. So I think I was able to define that because to me it was really clear. So, do you want me to explain this? It's
Mhm.
okay. Yeah. So animals are definitely aware of their environment, and you know that. All animal communicators know that. They're aware of what's going on around them. They're aware of the nature of the what's going on around them. They're completely aware of it. They're not just like walking around in space and not knowing what their environment is. So they're aware of their environment. They're aware of other animals around them. They're aware of the emotions of all the other animals. Like let's say a dog lives with two cats, three dogs. They know perfectly well what's going on, the emotions of the others, how they're feeling physically, emotionally, what they're experiencing. They're aware of all of that. Um, so once I had to work for a scientist, and she asked me to do a communication for monkeys, and I was like super happy in South Africa. And I was like, great, I'm going to do monkeys. That's so cool. And she gave me like 100 pictures, 100. I was like, oh my God, 100 pictures. And so it was really interesting because she was doing scientific research on the behavior of those monkeys. And that's when I realized that they are completely aware of how they interact amongst themselves.
Mm.
And that's what we show also in the movie. When the part where we come to the monkeys, we show how they're completely aware of interaction, emotions and interaction. And they're aware of the people around them. So we show that in the movie, how the monkeys are completely aware of the people who are taking care of them. And so they're really like, they're super intelligent. Like they know if the person who's going to come and take care of them is in a good mood or in a bad mood, you know. So they adapt their behavior in consequence. They know how far they can go. So that's consciousness, awareness of emotions, how other animals feel, how the people around them feel. That's definitely consciousness. Then the next layer of consciousness is aware of oneself. And really, I mean, and I'm sure plenty of animal communicators are going to agree with me. I really saw that animals, they are aware of how they feel physically. They're aware of how they feel emotionally. They're completely aware of themselves. They're aware of their bodies. They're aware if they're sick, if they're not sick, if their body is healthy, not healthy. And they're aware of their own emotions. So the only level that they might probably not go to is analyzing. That's specifically human beings analyzing, interpreting. But that doesn't mean that just that only element is going to define consciousness. You know, all the rest defines animal consciousness.
And as you're saying this, I'm realizing they also are aware of their roles in relationships, which is a whole other level of consciousness, right? Like me in
Absolutely.
relation to you, and you in relation to somebody else, and where do I fit into the
Yeah.
bigger group, which is another aspect of consciousness.
Absolutely. And so there's a lot of things, okay, they might be a bit unconscious, you know, when, for example, an animal comes in someone's life and they transform that person's life, as you well know. You know, so many people have told me, if it hadn't been for my cat, hadn't been for my dog, I would have never survived. You know, this or that experience, this or that childhood, this abuse. You know, I've heard this so many times. And I think all of us animal communicators, we've all experienced that through communications. So they might not be necessarily aware of all those details that maybe we can pick up on, you know, psychically or some other way, but they know the importance that they have in the life of a person. They're aware of that transformation, maybe not like with words the way we have it and the way we interpret, but they're definitely aware. Yeah.
And that awareness that's a game changer, right? I mean, in terms of human relationships to animals, understanding that they share consciousness and awareness in the way that we do, that changes everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Completely. Yeah.
So, what have you seen when people become aware of this? Have you seen people change their behavior? Are there big patterns that you've noticed over the last couple of decades in this field?
Yes.
Just the public's perception of animals?
Yes. So you're talking more about the communication or about the idea of conscious? Because
The
I've known,
consciousness, I
yeah.
think.
Okay. I have to admit, you know, Gara, this is a really tough one. This is the one because for some reason, when I talked about animals having thoughts and feelings, people were fine. No problem. Oh yes, yes, yeah, we agree. They would. I mean, at least they got to it. At least with the lectures I've done. So I've done basically the type of countries I've done. So I can't speak of the ones I haven't done. Have been, you know, France, Switzerland, Belgium, Canada, French-speaking Canada, and Spain and Italy. Those are basically the places I've lectured and spoken and taught in. So there's not so much trouble. What I noticed is, for some reason, I have no idea why, when I start speaking about consciousness, it's as if their mind switches off. They just can't go there. I don't know why. And I've given lectures on consciousness, and also even the attendance, you know, like for example, in Canada, in French-speaking Canada, when I spoke animal communication, afterlife, animal healing, all those subjects, full, like an enormous room, like full to the brim. When I spoke consciousness, I mean, much less, like half, a bit more than half. And then when they would have to ask questions, you know, at the end when people ask questions, they never ask questions on consciousness. It's like they can't go there. Now, is it related to food? because like it's too hard to think that like what most people are eating is conscious, or maybe they're not ready to go there. I just don't know. But people switch off.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, isn't it? Because it becomes a black and a white thing with
Yeah,
people when
yeah,
it's really this continuum of understanding, right? Like
yeah.
there's this full range. One of the things, you've been using the phrase Cartesian,
Yes,
and some people in our audience may not know what you're referring to, but that's the Descartes, the
yes,
Cartesian duality, right? You're
exactly.
either human or animal, you're
Yes,
alive or you're dead.
yes,
This very polarized way of seeing things. And I
yes,
wonder if the thing that I guess I wonder if this whole piece about consciousness, and it's so hard for people to accept, is around the whole idea of a soul. And then if animals are conscious, they have a soul. I'm conscious, I have a soul. And
yes.
all of a sudden we're the same, and I just can't handle that.
They can't know, but you don't even know. I mean, the struggles. Oh my God! Because like in Europe, I mean, it's changed a lot. Now there was a referendum not long ago that talks a bit more about animal consciousness and about the fact that they're not objects. Because not long ago they changed that. Not long ago, animals were objects. They were considered by law objects, and I was faced with some directly, and in the horse world it was really really tough, where they just consider them like machines. And oh no, they don't feel, no, they don't think, no, it doesn't matter, no, we can just this one is, we'll just take another one. This one is sick, okay, we'll euthanize, take another one. I mean, the mentality, and I've worked even with people who are hunters. I even had a hunter once who came to my class. I mean, he nearly got attacked by everybody, but he was very courageous to come to class, by the way. But yeah, the struggle with all of that. I mean, I wouldn't even talk about soul. I wouldn't even I didn't even go there. I started off when I had to talk about that. It was also, there wasn't the whole new age movement that happened in America. That happened much later in Europe, much later. So when I stepped in, which was 20 years ago, I mean, all of that talk that we were used to in America, I mean, there's been a lot, healing and consciousness and other dimensions. There's been a lot of people, a lot of talks, a lot of books. All that didn't even exist in Europe. Now it's open. So yeah, it's been a long journey. I mean, thanks to people like you who interview me, I'm able to look back, because you're so caught up in it and in the moment and trying to express your passion and express a reality for the animals you're not even aware at that moment. But
Right.
yes, Cartesian means that. Cartesian means a certain way of thinking also, where I was raised in French school, and it's a certain way of thinking.
And it's still there.
It's still there.
I know we have so many animal communicators in Europe now, and so many people who, are obviously using, the
Yes,
services of animal communicators. So
yes,
we know that it is spreading, but
yes.
it might, take a little bit longer. But why is it so important to you to raise global awareness about animal consciousness?
Yes. You know what? It's a really good question. I'm not sure I can answer. It's like I've always had this very strong feeling that this is what I have to do. Is and is and I've been led to that. I mean, I had a few near-death experiences in my life where things, when you nearly die and you change your whole perception on the world and what's. And one of the reasons I said I'm staying is, well, first of all, of course, my children, and then doing this, because before I was an artist and I loved art and I loved music, I love dance, I love stage, I still love it. But this became so important to me. Um, it was more like a drive, like a very strong drive. And that gave me tremendous energy, because my energy was not normal, really, to say the truth, because I would travel and the jet lag and nonstop, and talking and writing and lecturing and teaching and just nonstop, and doing healings at 2 a.m., doing million emergencies, horses with colics. I mean, crazy. It's crazy life. But I really think I had help from above. But it was, and it doesn't mean being a chosen or anything like that. It was just maybe my soul somewhere decided to do that at some point, somewhere, who knows. And I got help and I did it. But
What
I
do
feel,
you,
yeah,
no, go
sorry,
ahead.
I'm sorry. I feel that if people, because I didn't really answer your question, if people understood more about animal consciousness, I really feel it would change the condition of animals on this planet. I really feel that. And another thing I really feel is that animal consciousness cannot be separated from our own consciousness. It's impossible. And we absolutely have to evolve in consciousness because our planet is a disaster. I mean, as we all know, I'm not the only
Yeah.
one to speak about this. We all know this. We're going straight to disaster. And so we can't separate the consciousness of animals from our own consciousness because all
And
these
we can't
animals are being.
separate our fate from the fate of animals either.
No, no. I mean, you realize all these animals that are being extinct. It's crazy. I mean, it's very depressing and it's very sad. But at the same time, things are going faster. It's like, I mean, it looks like it's going straight to disaster, but at the same time, there is more global awareness. For example, when I started in Spain, I can't remember when I met my editors, maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I mean, there was no one, absolutely no one. I was literally the first one. There was this other lady who had started, forgot her name. And she didn't have I mean, one has to have that ability to speak clearly and to explain things to a certain public, and so they contacted me. They're my Spanish editors, wonderful people. And I was literally really the first one. And I thought, oh, well, this is going to take forever in Spain. And it didn't. It went really fast.
Hmm.
So there is the factor that the more you do, the more it happens in that country. It starts, picking up and going faster. And now there's a bunch of people in Spain, and they're not necessarily people that I've taught. It just happened really fast. But I was the first one, and I wrote the books and all of that, lectures. So I
What
think
do you,
it's the 100 monkey factor,
right.
101 monkeys.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking the 100th monkey or the tipping point, or,
Yes,
how there's a breakthrough in science or health or something, and two people, five people don't even know each other. They have the same idea at the same
absolutely.
time and they
Yes,
start working in the same direction. It's like
exactly.
it's out there. Right?
Yes, completely. And also another thing I've noticed over the years when I teach is people have results faster and they have more results. So okay, great. I've improved my teaching. I hope so through the years, with experience. But I still notice people have more results, and it must have to do with that. The fact that so many more people are doing it, more people are teaching, more people are aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, probably people coming into it now have more automatic acceptance of it, and a really basic belief that it's possible.
I think so. The idea of possible, there's less resistance. I
Mhm.
mean, I had to fight so much resistance. Yeah, I mean, I remember my first classes, I had, especially in the equestrian center, I had to forbid people to go outside because the horses would end up with colics. Because people were so emotional, and they would start crying and they would go right in front of the horses and then they would have colics. I had to forbid them to go in that area. They weren't allowed. They would have to go somewhere else, go in nature, go where the trees are. Not that it's great for the trees, but they could deal with it. But now it's not the same. There's less layers of emotions, less resistance, less fear,
Mhm.
you know, less blockages, less doubts, all of that. Yeah,
So interesting. I love this big
yeah.
picture. What do you think is the relationship between animal consciousness and animal communication with humans?
Yeah. I think that, okay, even if they don't get it right away, it doesn't matter. I think animal communication is it's how do you say semilla? When you plant something, a seed. Sorry, sometimes I get my words in Spanish or French. So I think it's a seed because it's the stepping stone to get to animal communication. So people sometimes, all they do, all they need is the validation. Oh, I was able to see the other dog, the other horse. I saw the lady with the blonde hair. I saw that this animal had pain in his leg. I saw that there was the yellow sofa. You know, I'm inventing stuff. For them, they get validations, which the truth is, like, no one really cares about those things. They're not really important. But to me, it's a stepping stone to be able to accept that animals, yes, have thoughts and emotions, and also that our consciousness as far as human beings is able to go beyond time and space, and that we're able to access all those things. So animal communication is a stepping stone to get to that, to get to something bigger. Because I think if it wasn't that, maybe I would have got bored with it really fast. You know, like, why is the cat peeing, and why is the dog barking, and why is the horse not jumping? I mean, if it wasn't because it's related to human emotions, because as you well know, we all know this, all the communicators, we know this, so many things are linked to the human person, to the human companion. But I think if it wasn't related to that and to human consciousness, I mean, maybe I would probably have got bored. It wouldn't have been challenging enough.
Yeah, it's like a whole area that's open for discovery and all these little nooks and crannies to
Yes,
explore in and
yes.
understand and everything.
Yeah, and it's so much more than what we think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do you have any final thoughts on the topic that you want to share before we wrap up today?
Wow, we're wrapping up already?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it went so fast. I didn't look at the time. Um, I think this is what I could say. I think we always, okay, I'm not going to be dogmatic, so I'm not saying it in a dogmatic tone at all. I'm really saying it, I hope, out of compassion for us, because we're in a mess, human beings, and animals, because they're leaving this dimension. So I'm not saying it in a dogmatic way. I think we're all responsible. We're responsible for our planet, and we're responsible for animals, and we're all responsible for the extinction of animals, even if we think we're not. We think, nah, that does not have to do with me. But all these species are being extinct, and I saw it close by because I worked with scientists closely. And it's really upsetting to see that these beautiful animals are just disappearing. So we're all responsible. And whatever we can do, it doesn't matter whether we're going to work in a rescue, whether we're going to save this cat, whether we can learn whoever can learn it, just learn whatever you can, you know, do whatever you can, work with groups. There's so many people who do things now, tons of group volunteer. I've done tons of volunteering work, and the gratification is incredible. I've worked with elephants. I worked specifically with a rescue in Malaga of horses that are like terribly abused. Whatever anyone can do, let's just do it, you know because we're all responsible.
I love that. Let's just do it. Do whatever you can. Don't
Oh
worry
yeah.
about doing the whole package.
Yeah.
Just do the piece that's in front of you and take care of
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah, we don't have to dedicate, no one's asking anyone to dedicate their life to do the whole thing. Certain people do it because they have to do it. It depends on what you're supposed to do in life, but something,
yeah.
just a bit more awareness is great.
I love this, Laila. For people who want to stay in touch with you, I know you have a newsletter in each language that
Yes.
you have, right? So you got French, Spanish, English. We
Yes.
have a button right here on this page to connect people to Lila's English newsletter. So if you want to stay in touch with her and get on her list for her newsletter, then use that button. Also, liladelmonte.com, and
Yes.
many languages, many options for everybody everywhere to learn more about Laila in their particular favorite language. And Laila has agreed to come back and do a bonus interview, and she's going to be going deeper into another topic that is really dear to her heart, which is the passage to the afterlife. And she is quite a respected expert on this area as well. So I'm looking forward to that. And if you would like to join us for that talk, then you can do that by purchasing an all access pass. There's another button on this page for you to purchase your all access pass, and that gives you lifetime access to all of the presentations in the summit, including all of the bonus interviews with all of the experts, and the price does go up when the summit ends, so act now to get the best value. As we wrap up, Laila Del Monte, I just want to say thank you so much for your pioneering spirit, your determination, your dedication, and for sharing your perspective and your insights with us today.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for being part of the community and being part of this summit. The energy is just awesome. It's through the roof. And I'm just delighted to be in community with all of you and all of the good that you're doing in the world. So keep it up. And until then, I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.